There's two primary methods of creating civilian presence across your maps. The first one is under Ambient Civilian Presence. The next one is under MCC Ambient Units. We're going to put the ambient units down, and then under Ambient Civilian Presence we're going to put the civilian presence down, the position down as well, and the spawn point. Next thing we're going to go to is our area scaling widget, and we're just going to scale up the civilian presence spawn point and then spawn up the civilian presence position. First thing we'll go into is the ambient units, as it's the most simplest. The ambient units basically spawns units across the map, and you can define what faction spawns, but you don't really have much else control other than that, and also the relation that you have with the civilian. You do have a couple options, for example, using ambient patrols, cars, whether or not they're locked, the type of faction, as I said before, and the relation. If I go to this website, which you can reach simply under Google by typing in Arma 3 Alive Factions, you can see it pops up as supported factions, and if you scroll to the very, very bottom to where we see CUP Community Upgrade Project, these are the names of all the factions that we can put into this text log to spawn. So for example, to differentiate from the other one, I'm going to put in CUP CTK under faction and car faction. This is going to spawn civilians from Takistan. I'll set the relation to very good, and I'll make them always friendly. I'll now hit OK. That module is done. The next module is the civilian presence module, which offers a lot more control and is very, very powerful. So the first thing I'm going to do is go into the presence module. I'm going to change the civilian count from 5 to maybe 30. I'm going to make sure use panic action is enabled. This will make sure that when units are fired at or they're engaged in combat or they see danger, that they will actively run away. I will make sure that use agents is enabled. This is very important. This basically simplifies the AI behavior to make it much more manageable for the server to run, so you can have a much larger number of these AI on screen than you can have traditional AI, and then I'm going to leave debug off. Next, I'm going to go into the civilian presence position. So there's 3 different types: cover, cover, and waypoint, and waypoint. Cover basically means when the AI is shot at, this is where they will run to. Cover and waypoint means that it's a dual function, so that they will normally walk towards these waypoints and also use it as cover. And waypoint means that the AI that's spawned by the module will use this particular position to navigate through the world. Capacity is the amount of AI that can be assigned to a particular waypoint at one point in time. I'll set it to 2 so that only 2 people can use it at once. I'm going to disable use closest building. Basically what this means is that if there's any buildings in the proximity, they will walk into this building or walk through this building to get to this waypoint. I'm going to turn that off. Terminal also is an interesting one because if a unit is being shot at and they're running to cover, if you have this set to cover and you have is terminal enabled, it will delete them. I don't particularly use this all that often. So we'll hit OK. The spawn point is pretty standard. There's really no attributes to it. It just dictates where they will spawn within the presence module. And if I select the presence module, you can even see that there's a little bounding box of where this presence module will be active. I'm going to drag the presence module so that it covers the entirety of Agia Marina. I'm then going to grab the spawn point and just place a couple of them down. You don't need a million of these, but you do need at least 5 to 6 in order to get the right type of coverage you want for the map. I'm then going to take the waypoint or the presence position, which is where they're going to be moving to in terms of waypoint, and I'm just going to paste a couple of these down across the map so that way the AI can properly navigate across the map, and it'll make the city look much more real, inhabited, and present. Okay, I think that should be apt. With that now being done, we can hit play and then enter the single player. So the first thing that you're going to notice between the two is you are going to notice 2 different types of civilians walking around the location of Agia Marina. The problem with the civilian presence module is you cannot really define what type of AI spawns, and also you cannot spawn vehicles with it. But what you do get with it is a lot more control of the unit placement. You can condense areas into large crowds where there's a lot of people in a very short range, or over a long range as well, so you do have that scalability, and it also runs at much higher performance standard than the other one. But with the Ambient Units module under MCC, you get a broader spectrum, so you have more units that you can place down across the map in terms of the variety of units. You can choose what faction. You could also utilize faction relations, which is great because you can have both friendly and foe for your civilians. And you could also utilize parked vehicles. For example, these parked cars are being spawned by the ambient units, not the civilian presence. But if I increase the duration of time, you can see that some of the Arma 3 civilians under the presence module are now walking around the map. Finally, the last bit I wanted to show, which I think is the most important and the best attribute about the presence module, is that you can stack it. So if I go to the presence module, which is here, if I copy and paste it, let's say 3 times, because each one of them is set to 30, that means that all of these waypoints in here will now be applied to, instead of 30 units, 120 units. So you can make very dense towns with a very low cost on the CPU, which is great. And that's the 2 different methods and ways that we can utilize AI to populate the world in.